Okay.
And that's from the top to the bottom. On the bottom, you have the homeless population. On the top, you have individuals who have really nice jobs, high six-figure salaries, but they aren't fulfilled inside.
Right.
Because they're chasing after the Joneses, even though they are the Joneses. And they don't understand that it's often really easy to become a captive to the lifestyle. Right. And that does not breed happiness or fulfillment. And so those two individuals, the person at the top of the society and the person at the bottom, are both suffering. Mm-hmm. Their situations are different. One at the bottom, their immediate surroundings are probably, their needs are probably more than likely much more immediate. And so that's where the focus is now.
And so is it more of a spiritual focus? Because those sound more like spiritual issues if the person at the bottom and the person at the top are both unfulfilled.
Well, it's kind of a, you can't treat one part of the person without treating all of them, I believe. A lot of this is going to take holistic solutions, and that's going to take treatment for the whole person.
Okay.
You can't just feed somebody and not deal with the habits they may have. So you can't just treat the addiction problem when they don't have anywhere to stay. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get a job if you don't have an address.
Right, and I've actually known somebody who actually experienced that exact situation.
Right. Yeah. You lose your ID. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things you can't do if you lose your ID. You get in trouble as a teenager, and you wind up with something on your record that lasts for a long time, or even a young adult.
Right.
You find the error of your ways, but you still have this on your record, and you can't get an apartment anywhere.
Right.
Because they do background checks, and you can't. Where do you live? You can't get an apartment. You can't get a nice job. It's hard to get a job. You can't do all of this, but it's really the obstacles are much larger in that situation. Right. And for someone who is willing to do the work and has done the work to reform and rehabilitate themselves, refocus their direction, those obstacles are still out there. Okay. And so it's not just spiritual. It's not just the immediate needs of putting food in the stomach. It's kind of all of it.
Okay. So what do you say to people who are like, this, I don't want to call it a crusade, but this project is more of like the different categories of like the war on poverty. I mean, there's always going to be impoverished people, or the war on anything crazy, the war on obesity, the war on people who like pencils, mm-hmm. the war on people who like chicken. You know, any theoretical practice out there that can never be resolved. What do you say to those people when it comes to homeless? As in, do we throw our hands up and say forget about it, or we take the holistic approach and start doing something about it?
I mean, you just pretty much answered it. It's like, so do we quit because it's hard? It seems hard. Does that mean we don't do it? If a dog bites you on your leg and it's hard for you to get him off, do you quit trying to get him off?
Okay.
Well, see, that's a much more immediate issue. The pain is personal then.
Okay.
And a lot of times it's not personal. Well, you can close your door to someone who's homeless on the streets. That's not, when you wind up on the other side of that door, which a lot of people never predict that. Homelessness can strike anyone at any time. With the economy the way it is, anything can happen.
Right.
A traumatic event could happen to someone in your life, a close relative died, and you may not recover from that as well as you think you would.
Right.
Loss of a job. Several things. It happens. The stories are as diverse as the American population, and we have a pretty diverse population. And so it's hard to predict what will happen mm-hmm. in the future.
Right.
And so to negate the need of someone because it's not immediately hurting you mm-hmm. is kind of short-sighted. In a way, it's almost a selfish thing that I'm doing, because I would like, if I were in the situation where I stay outside on the street, where I had to live on the streets, mm-hmm. I would hope there was somebody out there trying to motivate other people to change the environmental situation that allows me to stay out there. And that's what it's about. It's I think ultimately the way I look at it, Mark, is when at the end of the day you go to sleep, and the beginning, the next day you wake up, and you can choose to go left, you can choose to go right. I choose to go in a direction that will benefit the most amount of people as I can.
Okay.
As long as I can do it. I mean, it may not be feasible for the rest of my life, but like right now, I had the opportunity to do it, and I'm doing what I can.
Okay. Well, you know, I guess the thing that I look at is there's an old saying: if you give a person a piece of fish, they'll eat for a day. If you teach them how to fish, they'll eat for a lifetime.
Exactly.
So when we're looking at the homeless situation, I guess the question would be, you know, you mentioned holistic. What is your action plan for attacking it from both sides? Meaning, how are you not only putting people in homes or easing their suffering while they're in homeless? How are you guys, or you or whatever organizations you're a part of, how are you teaching them the skills necessary to get jobs or to overcome their situations? Or is it just, let's put them in a house?
As long as there have been homeless people, there have been people getting people off the streets. There's no magic in there.
Okay.
Basically, this is what has to happen. A person has to decide that I want to get off the street, and they have to be willing to do the work. There are dozens of organizations all across the country that have experts, and once a person makes that decision and say, I'm ready, then they'll get off the streets if they're determined enough. There's nothing, it's like there's another old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Right.
The individual has to be willing to do what it takes to get off the street. There's nothing you can do to make them get off the street.
Okay.
And so, and that's not even the among the experts. That's totally understood. When I say holistic, as far as this goes, I mean a big portion of it is making a conscious effort to do stuff to stop people from becoming homeless. Not even just focusing on it, but like if more people went and mentored children in schools who need mentors, they would do a lot to change the direction of their lives. It's understood that test grades in math and science in the 3rd grade are a really good predictor on how someone is going to succeed through the rest of their matriculation. How many prisons are going to be built? Exactly. Interference by people who have made it in that time period could change that direction. The more people go to prison, the more people wind up homeless.
Right.
It's just one thing. And it's really a lot of those little things. Reaching out to your community and doing things that benefit people who aren't homeless will stop and help decrease the homeless population. Because the people who like Search or Bread of Life or the My Fellow Man Alliance, they're out there getting people off the streets right now, like today. All of them. Search serves over 10,000 people a year, and they get people off the streets. That's what they do. They're experts at it. They're on the front lines doing that.
Okay.
But if the society is putting more people on the street than their capacity to pull off, then the problem gets bigger.
Okay.
And so my ultimate goal is to start to change the environmental impetus that creates those situations that allow people to be homeless, and that helps that those environmental that environment is changed by a change in our mentality. Okay. As a people, the mentality that we should be going towards is the mentality that we're actually moving away from, and that is, I am my brother's keeper. I look out for my neighbor. It's pretty simple. I look out for my neighbor, and once everyone starts to do this. If I have your back, and you got the person's back next to them, and they got my back, everybody's back is watched.
Okay, except for the last guy.
No, see, that's what I'm saying. It's 3 of us. They watching mine.
Oh, so we watching back.
We're watching circle. Exactly.
Okay.
All of our backs are watched. But if all of us are watching our own back, then I won't know. Somebody get the best of you, I won't know. I'm too busy watching my back, and it's just me and this other person standing here, don't know what the situation is. If we looking out for each other, that's unity that builds the strength in numbers. But if we're all, we can have a huge crowd of people, 100,000 people standing in the same space, and they're out for self, that's not a group.
Right.
It's not a unit. It's not a team. It's not an army. It's not a squad. It's just a bunch of individuals standing there.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this though. So, when we're looking at the society as a whole, do you think it's an issue with selfishness, meaning that everybody just has their own back, or that people are working a bazillion hours and don't have time to watch anybody else's back but their own?
It's. I don't think both of those. I don't think those are mutually exclusive.
Okay.
They're the same thing. It's we're forced. It's like the stress of society. It's kind of forcing everyone to turn inward.
Okay.
And it's happening before our eyes, and we're working too hard to pay attention to it. I'm not saying stop working.
Right.
I'm not saying stop paying your bills. I'm not saying stop taking your kids, giving your kids fine things. I'm just saying I'm trying to bring attention to it. Just think about it. That's all I want people to do is think about it. And that's where my whole awareness campaign came in. When in 2007, I walked from Houston to Los Angeles to raise awareness for homelessness. And it was 1,800 miles, 4.5 months. I started in the spring and walked right through the Mojave Desert in the summertime. And it wasn't about, I wasn't trying to be homeless. I wasn't trying to say that homelessness will end if I keep walking. I wanted people to think about it just a little bit more. Because ultimately, I believe in all of our hearts, we're very caring and compassionate. If we have the time, we just take the time to think about stuff. And sometimes you need to, shock and awe was kind of my thing during this time period. The insanity of somebody walking across the country is enough to stop people from what they're doing. And they at least listen. Why are you doing that? Are you crazy?
Right.
Do you think you're Forrest Gump? Those are the two
you read my
most popular
whole Forrest Gump thing.
Right. And during that time, they stop everything they're doing, and I have their utmost attention.
Cool.
And I say, you know what? Think, man, there's a lot of people out here homeless. Most of them don't want to be homeless. Most of them are suffering. Think about it. And when I talked about that, all across the country, almost a quarter of the people that I talked to had experienced at one point in time in their life, for a couple of weeks or more at least. Mm-hmm. They had different varying opinions, but most of the people I talked to had personally been homeless. And around half the people I talked to, if not 3/4, knew someone really close to them who was homeless.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a bigger problem than we acknowledge. Mm-hmm. It's a bigger situation than we acknowledge. But the solution is there. If it's a problem, there's probably a solution to it.
Right.
And I just think we just need to think about it a little bit more. Mm-hmm. While you're drinking your coffee in the morning, think about, man, every now and then, I'm inside drinking this coffee. I just got out of my bed. Mm-hmm. There's a guy right now who's bumming some change for some coffee, and he slept outside on the sidewalk. Mm-hmm. It's 40 degrees outside, and it's raining. Right. And he slept out there under a sheet with no shoes on, in a T-shirt.
Oh, wow.
That's the life that people live. And then just think about it every now and then. I think if we think about that a little bit more, it would automatically change our actions. Because the more we think about it, we're all compassionate. Mm-hmm. And more likely we'll be to do something. Everyone doesn't have to go out there and pull people out and make people live with you.
Right.
Support the people who are already doing the work. Send them a check once a year. Go volunteer a couple of hours every couple of months.
Cool, you just read my mind, because that's what I was about to ask. If we had to state specifically what the problem was, the problem would be chronically homeless people and their suffering. Is that a good... what is the direct problem, I guess, is the statement.
The problem is much more obscure than the evidence that you see right here.
Okay.
I think the actual problem is
there's
a purveyance of apathy and fear in our society. Now, without that, I don't want to sound...
no, please, spit it out. That's why we're here. Let's talk about it. That's the name of the show. Let's talk about it.
Mark, you're going to do Oprah. Had me crying up here. No, I'm not going to cry now, but it's like... these are real world problems.
Okay.
The solutions are real world. but they don't necessarily thought it was real world.